Good afternoon, everyone. We are Samuel Pedroso and Natalia Lara, and today we are going to discuss media stereotypes and intercultural perceptions. What I need to say about this topic is that it's particularly important because we currently live in a world where most of our knowledge about other cultures doesn't come from direct experience. Instead of it, it comes from films, television, social media platforms, influencers, news channels, streaming services, and digital content. Because of all this, media have become one of the most powerful cultural institutions in contemporary society.
Okay, for this analysis, we will compare the United States and Colombia. We have selected these two contexts because they represent different positions within the global media system. The United States is one of the world's largest producers of media content. On the other hand, Colombia consumes a significant amount of the international media while also creating local digital content. Through this comparison, we will examine how stereotypes are created, how they influence intercultural perceptions, and how they affect education, identity, construction, communication styles, and sociocultural change. People often think that stereotypes are just wrong ideas about certain groups, but they are actually more complex. Stereotypes are simplified images that can lead to reduce the diversity of a culture, nationality, ethnicity, or social group to just a few traits. The issue here is not only that they can be inaccurate, but that they end up becoming the main way people understand and judge entire societies.
Mass and digital media play a key role in this process. As the course materials explain, media have the power to shape social behavior, values, beliefs, and even identity. And this means they do more than just report what is happening in the world. They also influence how we understand it. In many cases, media can become more powerful than direct experience because people are constantly exposed to the same messages until they start to seem natural and unquestionable.
And this is especially important in education. Many students form ideas about foreign cultures long before they actually meet people from those cultures. As a result of this, media representation turn into learning experience, whether they are accurate or not.
Well, mass media refers to communication channels that distribute information to large audiences, including the television, the newspapers, the radio, the films, the websites, and social media platforms.
And what about digital culture? Well, it refers to the social practices, values, behaviors, and forms of communication that can emerge through digital technologies. So it is not only about using technology, it is about living the environments in where digital interaction shapes everyday life.
Yes, a stereotype can be defined as an oversimplified belief about a group of people. So, although the stereotypes may contain fragments of truth, they usually ignore diversity and complexity in the society.
We also intercultural perception, and it refers to the way individuals understand and interpret people from different cultural backgrounds. These perceptions are often influenced by media representations rather than direct personal experience.
And finally, identity constructions. refers to the process through which individuals develop their understanding of who they are. Modern media takes an important role in this process because they provide models of behavior, their success, their beauty, citizenship, and social belonging.
One of the most interesting concepts the hyperdocument is the idea of mediations. In the article Mass Media Human Being Society, it's explained that contemporary life is increasingly organized around media system. Following this idea, media are no longer simply tools of communication and they have become institutions that influence how society understands reality.
The article also argues that digital media influence not only information, but also values, attitudes, and social behavior. This means that our perceptions of other cultures are often mediated by digital platforms. In simple words, we don't necessarily know about another culture directly. We know a media version of that culture.
Another important idea is from the readings is globalizations because it has increased the access to information and cultural products from different countries. However, it has also increased the circulation of stereotypes because the same narrative can now reach millions of people instantly.
In addition to this, the articles discusses the manipulation strategies used by media systems, such as appealing to emotions instead of critical reasoning. And this is very important because stereotypes often survive not because they are accurate, but because they are emotionally persuasive and easy to remember. And well, when we compare in these slides US versus Colombia, we find important differences and similarities. In terms of cultural behavior, US culture tends to emphasize the independence, the personal achievement, and individual responsibility. Meanwhile, Colombian cultures tends to place greater value on family relationships, social networks, and collective support systems.
However, media stereotypes frequently exaggerate this difference. Americans are often portrayed as cool, materialistic, or excessively individualistic. Colombians are often portrayed as emotional, informal, or associated with violence and drug trafficking with Pablo Escobar. These stereotypes ignore the diversity that exists within both societies.
And well, the US is one of the most culturally diverse countries in the world. Similar to this, Colombia contains enormous ethnic, regional, linguistic, and cultural diversity, but media stereotypes often reduce both societies to simplistic images.
As a consequence of these actions, people develop perceptions based on media narrative rather than cultural realities.
Well, one of the most useful concepts from the course is whole distinction between high context and low context communication. The United States, well, the US, is generally considered a low context culture. For example, the messages tend to be direct, explicit, and clearly expressed. In less words, people often prioritize the efficiency and clarity in communication.
Colombia is generally considered a high context culture. Communication often relies more heavily on context, relationships, emotions, and shared understandings. People tend to interpret meaning through social cues and interpersonal relationships.
And the problem appears when media evaluate one communication style using the standards of another. For example, indirect communication can be or may be interpreted as dishonesty, while direct communication may be interpreted as rudeness.
This misunderstanding demonstrates how stereotypes can emerge from cultural differences that are not fully understood. Well, identity construction has changed dramatically during the digital age. Previous generation built identified mainly through family, school, religion, and local communities. Nowadays, digital platforms participate actively in this process.
Yes, young people spend enormous amounts of time interacting with media content like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, among others. Even in the article is mentioned and highlights how media consumption occupies a significant part of young people's lives compared with traditional educational activities. As a result of this, identity increasingly develops through online interactions.
In the United States and Colombia, young people consume similar content through TikTok, Instagram, Netflix, YouTube, and streaming platforms. This creates global cultural reference, however, it can also create pressure to imitate dominant cultural models.
Media allow the students to access information from different cultures and develop global awareness.
Students can learn language, discover cultural traditions, and participate in international communities. This new culture was almost impossible for previous generations.
However, media can also reinforce prejudice. If students repeatedly encounter stereotypical representations, they may accept those representations as reality.
Therefore, education should promote media literacy. Students need to learn how media messages are produced, who benefits from them, what perspective may be excluded, perhaps. It is one of the most important educational challenges of the digital era. Over the last decade, digital culture has produced profound social cultural transformations in both Colombia and the United States.
Also, one important change is the emergence of hybrid identities. People no longer identify exclusively with local cultures. Instead of it, they often combine local traditions with global influences.
Another important transformation is the development of digital science citizenship. People participate politically, socially, and culturally through digital platforms.
At the same time, media have transformed social interaction. Well, I can give an example like friendships, learning experiences, entertainment, and even political participation increasingly occur through digital environments and social media. And after that, after analyzing the course materials, we agree that media perform, both functions. They represent cultures, but they also actively participate in creating cultural meanings.
The greatest danger emerges when audience assume that media representations are complete and objective because some of the media representations involve selection. For example, some voices are amplified while others remain invisible.
This means stereotypes are not simply mistakes. They are social constructions that can influence our relationships, educational opportunities, and intercultural understanding.
For this reason, critical thinking is crucial and essential. People must learn to question media messages rather than consuming them passively. In conclusion, media stereotypes play a major role in shaping intercultural perceptions.
Well, talking about this slide, I would like to say that for me, the most important concept was intercultural communication. Uh, I will try to turn on my camera because my connection is really like bad. I'll do my best with this connection. Well, that's it. So I was saying important concept was intercultural communication. And before taking this course, I thought communication was mainly. And however, through the semester, I understood that communication is also influenced by cultural values, beliefs, traditions, and social norms. And one idea that particularly impacted me was the difference between the high context and low context cultures. I realized that misunderstandings often occur not because people have bad intentions, it's because they interpret the messages through different cultural framework. And well, this concept helped me to understand cultural differences in a much deeper way and change the way I see the interactions between the people from different societies. Another thing I would like to add to this is that at the beginning of the semester, I understood culture mostly as traditions, food, celebrations, and customs. Now I see the culture as something much broader and more dynamic. In addition to this, my understanding of identity also changed. I used to think identity was something fixed, but now I understand that identity is constantly being constructed through social experiences, education, family relationships, media, and cultural interactions. And I learned that people can belong to multiple cultural communities at the same time, especially in a globalized and digital world. And also, the digital culture has a significant influence on both my personal life and my education. Every day, I use digital platforms to access information, communicate with others, complete academic activities, and learn about different cultures. But at the same time, this course helped me to realize that digital culture is not always positive, and social media and digital platform story can spread stereotypes, misinformation, and unrealistic expectations. And because of this, I strongly believe that digital literacy and critical thinking are essential skills for students today, and I have become more conscious about questioning information rather than accepting every day we say online. And well, one of the biggest intercultural challenges is overcoming the stereotypes and prejudices. Although globalization has like connected the people from different countries, many individuals still develop opinions about other cultures based on media representations instead of direct experiences. Another challenge I thought about it and I learned is about learning how to communicate effectively with people who have different cultural values and communication styles. Sometimes cultural differences create misunderstandings that can affect relationships, education, and even professional environments. I believe that developing intercultural competence is becoming increasingly important in today's world. And as a future teacher and maybe a colleague in the future, I don't know, I want to create inclusive learning environments where the students feel respected regardless of their cultural background. And this course also taught me the importance of about stereotypes and media messages. I will also say, and I would like to incorporate intercultural perspectives into my lessons. So in that way, students can understand both their own culture and other cultures. In my opinion, last but not least, education should help students to become more open-minded, respectful, and capable of participating in an increasingly interconnected world.
Okay, the most important concept I learned during this semester was about cultural identity. Throughout this course, I discovered that identity is not simply something we are born with. Instead, it is shaped by culture, language, social experience, education, and interaction with others. This concept helped me understand that identity is complex and constantly evolving. It also made me to reflect on my own identity and the different influence that have contributed to who I am today. Before taking this course, I tend to see culture as a collection of traditions and customs associated with a particular country. Now, I understand that culture influences almost every aspect of people's life, including communication, behavior, education, values, and social relationships. My understanding of identity has also become more critical. I now recognize that identity is influenced not only by family and community, but also by globalization, technology, and media. Digital culture influences my life every day. It affects how I communicate, how I learn, how I access information, and even how I understand social issues. So, digital platforms, I can interact with people from different places and learn about perspective that I will not normally encounter. However, this course also made me aware of the risks associated with digital culture algorithms often expose us to limit perspective and social media can reinforce stereotypes or unrealistic standards. As a result, I have learned the importance of being more critical consumer of digital content, and I also believe one of the greatest challenges is balancing cultural diversity with global influence. And If we are talking about challenge, I will talk about the persistence of stereotypes. Many people continue to judge cultures based on simplified representation promoted by movies, television, or social media. Overcoming these stereotypes requires education, dialogue, and genuine intercultural experience. This course has shown me that teachers played an important role in promoting intercultural understanding. In my future teaching practice, I will encourage students to appreciate cultural diversity and develop respect for different perspectives. I also want to help students become critical thinkers who can analyze media messages and question stereotypes. In a world where digital culture has such a strong influence, education should not only transmit knowledge but also help students become responsible, reflective, and culturally aware citizens. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks to the teacher. Well, sorry for my bad internet. Sorry for that. So thank you so much. Have a nice day, evening, morning, whatever. Thank you so much.
Have a nice day.